It was before time itself, before sound had learned to move through the air, before the body had weight, before the skin knew cold or heat. There was only a breath, not a breath of wind, but of consciousness. Something without form, yet moving as if searching for a place to land. And it was within this breath that your story began. There were no letters, no paper. The message was not written in ink, but in light. An ancient light that crossed dimensions and slipped in like an invisible fragrance into what would one day become your soul. It spoke your name without uttering a single syllable. And yet you recognized it. You felt it, like hearing a familiar sound behind a closed door. That whisper was not born here. It wasn't shaped by the world, nor by the faces you would one day meet. It came from a place untouched by time, where millennia fit into the space of a blink, and where the deepest decisions are not made by the mind, but by the essence. And there, before any birth, someone, perhaps you yourself, left something inscribed. A reminder, a map without lines, a code that could not be erased, not even by the deepest forgetting. Since then, this message has followed you, sometimes as a sudden intuition, other times as a shiver that comes for no reason, or as that strange feeling that something important is about to happen, though you don't know what. For most of your life, you learned to ignore it. The voices of the world are far too loud, the demands far too urgent. But in certain moments of silence, between one thought and the next, between the night's last breath and the morning's first, you can almost hear it. It is in that space, as narrow as it is infinite, that the whisper lives, waiting for you to remember, waiting for you to follow it. Because the message did not come from outside. It did not come from a lost book, nor from a distant sage. It was born alongside who you are, and it is still there, untouched. And now it begins to call again. This message did not come from the world, and it waits for you. Some messages are not written by human hands. They are not shaped by pens, brushes, or keys. They are born like reflections, and can only be read by those who have learned to see beyond the obvious. Your message is like that. It doesn't appear all at once. It emerged slowly as if shy. First, a feeling in the corner of your gaze. Then, a strange symbol, scribbled by accident in a notebook you barely remembered owning. And then, a dream, where someone you didn't know spoke a phrase that kept echoing for days. You may have thought it was a coincidence, but the truth is, coincidences are the subtle language of the universe. And in that language, your message began to reveal itself. Imagine letters that do not shine, yet change the density of the air around them, like the shapes light draws when it passes through water, rippling over the bed of a river, or symbols forming in the foam of coffee, vanishing before you can take a picture. They are memories hidden in details so small that a hurried mind will never notice. Sometimes, they appear along the path you walk every day, in a faded piece of graffiti on a wall, in the title of a book you pick up by chance, in the face of a stranger who smiles as if they've just recognized you. And when that happens, something inside you stirs, a silent recognition, as if the world were trying to tell you, the story is still alive. But there is an even greater mystery. These letters do not arrange themselves like ordinary sentences. They are not linear, they do not follow human logic. They scatter across time and space, and only make sense when the heart decides to piece them together. That is why you still haven't understood the entire message. It wasn't made to be read all at once. It was made to be lived and slowly deciphered. While the world rushes on, it waits. etched in the light of a sunset you almost missed, in the perfect geometry of a spider's web at dawn, in the way a candle melts into a shape that feels strangely familiar. All of this is part of the same invisible text, a text that isn't in any book, but could change every book you will ever read after. And one day, when you are ready, the first page will open. But before that, you must remember the pact you made before you came down. Before your eyes saw the first light, before your body drew its first breath, you were somewhere else. It was not the world you know today. There was no wait, no haste. It was a space between worlds, silent and vast, where everything seemed made of liquid light and memories that had yet to take shape. It was there that the pact took place. You were not alone. Other presences surrounded you, beings whose very essence seemed woven from music, who looked at you as one recognizes a traveler about to embark on a long and dangerous journey. In that moment, you knew that descending into life would mean forgetting almost everything. And yet, there was something that could not be erased. The reason you chose to come. So, before those presences, you made an oath. Not with words, but with pure intention. You promised to remember even without knowing how. You promised to seek even without a map. You promised not to let the weight of matter crush the gentle sound of your origin. And like a sacred seal, the message was engraved, not in books, not in monuments, but in the invisible fabric of your soul. It would be your secret compass, even when everything around you tried to convince you it had never existed. But there was a risk. Upon crossing the veil, forgetting would arrive like a dense fog, erasing shapes, names, and even the memory of the pact. Only a strange feeling would remain, as if something were missing, like a word at the tip of your tongue that refuses to come. And still, you accepted, because you knew that at the right moment, clues would be left behind. Signs, coincidences that are not accidents, dreams that are not just dreams. The oath was made, the departure decided. You took the step, and the light began to dissolve around you, until only the darkness of the womb that would receive you remained. And in the final instant before crossing completely, a question echoed within you. This time, will you remember? But as you crossed the veil, almost all memories faded away, almost all. No one crosses without paying the price. And the price is always the same, memory. The veil is not made of cloth, nor of shadow. It is woven from forgetting, subtle threads that erase the lines of who you were before, like the tide washing away footprints in the sand. When your soul passed through it, you felt the gentle weight of something falling over you, as if an invisible cloak were covering every thought. It was warm, almost comforting, but beneath that softness lay a cruel purpose, to make you forget. And forgetting came like fog. First, the images unraveled. The faces you knew vanished. Then the sounds faded, like echoes drifting away into silence. And finally, the meaning, the why of everything dissolved into emptiness. The veil did not wish to harm you. It was only fulfilling its role, to protect the experience to come. For if you remembered everything, you would live nothing truly. There would be no surprise, no risk, no choice. And a life without choice is not life. It is only repetition. Still, something resisted. Some fragments slipped through the threads of forgetting. They were not full sentences, nor clear images. They were sensations. That strange familiarity before a place you've never been. The shiver when hearing a voice you swear you've heard before. The sudden certainty that something is about to happen, and it happens. These are small cracks in the veil, openings through which the message you swore to remember can, at times, whisper. But it cannot come all at once. If it did, it might break the very meaning of the journey. That is why it waits. That is why it reveals itself only in the right moments. Meanwhile, you walk through the world believing you are alone with your thoughts, unaware that at every corner of your life, symbols have been planted like seeds, waiting for the moment you can understand them. But who plants these symbols? Who decides when it is time to reveal the next piece? There is someone or something that guards this message until you are ready. Some believe destiny is a cold mechanism, lines pre-drawn in a book no one can touch. But the truth is, there are invisible hands, and some of them hold the pen. The keeper of symbols is one of those hands. He is not human, though sometimes he wears a human face to get closer. He might appear as a stranger on the subway who says a single sentence that changes your entire day, or as a friend who introduces you to a book that feels as though it was written just for you. Perhaps even as that teacher who asked one question and left you thinking about it for weeks. He doesn't hand out answers. He delivers clues, fragments, small signs that, to the distracted, seem like nothing, but to those who are awake, are like doors opening. His role is not to reveal the message. It is to protect it, to keep it out of the reach of haste, greed, and fear. Because if it were given too soon, it could be distorted or forgotten again. The keeper moves behind the scenes of your life. Sometimes he creates delays that irritate you, just so you meet someone in a line you were never meant to be in. Other times, he allows a strange dream to interrupt your sleep, just to show you an image you will not forget. And there are days when he does not appear at all. Days when the silence is absolute. That too is part of his role. For it is in the emptiness that the search grows stronger. You will never be entirely sure when the keeper is near. But deep down, there will always be the sense that something or someone is watching, not with control, but with care. And when he feels you are ready, when he sees that your mind will no longer try to rationalize everything, that your heart is willing to feel what it cannot explain, then he takes the next step. A clearer symbol, the piece that fits. And when the keeper decides you are ready, the first word appears. It did not come written. It didn't appear on paper, nor flash on a screen. The first word wasn't made of letters, but of something far older. It was a moment so quick it almost slipped by unnoticed. A shiver that began at the nape of your neck and ran down your spine. A sudden silence, as if the world had held its breath for a second. And in the midst of it, a vibration. It wasn't sound. It was as if the air itself had gained density. As if there were a pulse, a heartbeat, that didn't come from within your chest, but from somewhere between you and the unseen. The mind tried to name it. Perhaps it reached for a familiar word, something known. But deep down, it knew that wasn't it. The first word belongs to no human language. It is understood by feeling, not by translation. And when it came, something happened. Faint memories, not clear images, but sensations. The warmth of a place you've never visited. The touch of a hand you swear you've held before. An echo of a promise, as if someone were saying, "Do you remember?" This word didn't bring all the answers. It brought new questions. And with them, a strange kind of peace. The certainty that you are on the right path, even without knowing where it leads. From that moment, the world began to shift in tone. Not that the facts had changed, but the spaces between them grew more vivid. Every conversation seemed to hide a double meaning. Every place, a mark. and you began to realize you were being guided, not by maps, but by signs. Too small for those who live in a rush, too clear for those who have learned to pause and look. The first word is like the key that opens the first door. It doesn't reveal the entire castle, but it proves it exists. And now you must decide. Will you follow the trail? Or will you close your eyes and return to what you knew? Because when you choose to follow, the world begins to conspire. At first, you think it's chance. Two unlikely encounters. A lost object found again. A phrase someone says, unaware that it strikes exactly the chord you needed to hear. But after the first word, something changes. The world seems to become aware of your presence. Or perhaps it's you who begins to notice that it has always been alive, always whispering. Things start aligning in ways that feel almost indecent. People disappear from your life, making space for others to arrive. Doors that once seemed locked swing wide open, while paths that once felt certain suddenly close. And within this silent choreography, more fragments of the message emerge. Not clearly, not yet, but enough for you to feel the thread being pulled. You find an old book on some forgotten shelf. You flip through it without paying much attention until a single sentence leaps out as if it were on fire. You look up at the sky on an ordinary day, and the clouds form a shape that haunts you for the rest of the week. You dream of a golden door, and the next day you see the same design in a shop window. Each of these small coincidences begins to form a pattern only you can see, as if the message were being stitched together by invisible hands, using the very events of your life as needle and thread. But here's the thing. This conspiracy is not meant to make your journey easier. It is meant to transform it. Because deep down, the message is not just something you read. It is something you become. With every sign you follow, life pulls you further away from what is false. From distractions, from comforting illusions, from the stories you've told yourself to avoid pain. The universe begins dismantling everything that does not belong to your true path. And this is not always gentle. Sometimes it's loss. Sometimes it's rupture. But always it is liberation. And then, in the midst of this chaotic dance, you notice something you had never seen before. Your entire life has been written like a book, and the message is hidden between the lines. And when you piece all the lines together, something happens. There are stories you read with your eyes, and there are stories you can only read with scars. The message that was always meant for you was never written in a single place. It was scattered, fragmented, hidden within the moments you've lived, especially the ones that hurt the most. Every loss was a word, every meeting a comma, every farewell a period that was really preparing the next sentence. You may have thought that the suffering was pointless, that the gray days were just flaws in the script. But, seen from afar, they were the invisible handwriting of destiny. Imagine a scroll so vast it could never fit in any physical space. It is written in time, not on paper. And with every moment of your life, a new line is inscribed. Not in ink, but in experience. The laughter is part of the text too. The loves, the embraces, the glances that lasted only seconds but stayed with you for decades. They are like illuminated letters, balancing the heavier parts of the book. The problem is, living day after day, you can't see the full design. You are inside the sentence, not outside it. And distance is required to understand how it all fits together. Sometimes, the universe grants you that distance in fleeting moments. In a silent night, when you revisit memories and notice connections you never saw before. Or on a trip, when a place stirs memories that don't belong to this life. In those moments, you almost see the invisible text. Almost. But there's a risk. If you decipher the message before you're ready, it loses its power. Because its strength lies not only in the content, but in the path that brought you to it. And now, the lines are nearly complete. The scroll of your life is revealing itself. And when that happens, there will be no turning back. And when you piece all the lines together, something happens. There is no sudden flash, no trumpets, no doors bursting open. The revelation arrives like the tide at dawn, silent, inevitable, filling every space until, before you realize it, you are already surrounded by it. The message was always there. You carried it on your shoulders, in your chest, in your tears and your smiles. But only now does it allow itself to be read. It is not a set of elaborate phrases. It is not some esoteric secret known only to a few. It is simple. So simple that, upon understanding it, you almost laugh, and at the same time, feel the weight of your entire journey. You understand that you were never searching for something outside yourself. You never were. Everything, absolutely everything, was a movement to bring you back to the center. The center you have always been but had forgotten. The message does not say, go or stay. It does not say, do or wait. It whispers something deeper. You are. And in that instant, the pieces fall into place. The symbols, the encounters, the coincidences, the pains, all form a unique design that exists only for you. It is as if life had written a letter using the very fabric of time, and now you could finally read it in full. This revelation is not an explosion, it is an expansion. The world around you remains the same, but you see it differently. The light seems more alive, the air lighter. Even ordinary sounds, footsteps on the street, leaves in the wind, running water, now feel like part of a symphony you finally recognize. And perhaps the most curious thing is realizing that the message is not meant to be kept. It is not a secret to be locked away in a vault. It is a seed, and seeds are meant to be planted, not imprisoned. Now, the true mission was never to find it. It was to become what it says. You did not return to the point from which you departed. The place is the same, but you are not. Now, every detail carries a different weight. The same sky that once was only a backdrop now feels like a living veil breathing over the earth. The streets you walk every day are no longer simple paths, they are lines of a text you have learned to read. The return is not only physical, it is internal. You walk with a perception that cannot be switched off. You see patterns where once you saw chance. You see purpose where once you saw chaos. The people around you remain bound to their own searches. Some still deeply asleep, others slowly waking. And you understand? Not everyone will hear the message now. Not everyone is ready to see what you have seen. But this is no reason for sadness. Quite the opposite. Because just as the keeper once guarded your symbols, you now become the keeper of signs for others. You begin planting your own seeds, sometimes with words, sometimes only with presence. The return is the moment you realize the message was never about answers. It was about becoming the answer, becoming the living reminder that there is something greater, silent and constant, guiding every step. And with your eyes open, the journey never ends. It only changes shape. Now, your story will be the message for another soul who has yet to remember. You take a deep breath. The world breathes with you. And in the space between one thought and the next, you hear the same whisper that began it all. But this time, it is not distant. It speaks from within. Transformative closing message. You did not come here to find answers written by others. The message has always been within you, waiting for you to learn how to read the silence where it was engraved. Now, live as if every step were a line of that story.